Running a small business means I wear lots of hats. When I put on my hiring hat, I can count on LinkedIn Hiring Pro to make it easy. LinkedIn Hiring Pro helps manage my hiring workflow, puts my job post in front of a unique network of professionals, and matches me with the best candidates for my business. I can also share my job with my network. No other job site lets me do that. No wonder most small businesses say they'd use LinkedIn Hiring Pro again. Hire right the first time. Post your job for free on LinkedIn today at linkedin.com/quality.
The new Red Bull Dragonberry Energizer is now at McDonald's. Made with freeze-dried dragon fruit. And made to lock in. The all-new Energizer, now at McDonald's.
Hello, and welcome back to Lovely. Happy Friday. The last few episodes have been very fun, and the most recent one, which was with Evelyn, I feel like we covered a lot of ground on what's working with dating, what's not working in the dating world, and I think we both came to a conclusion that dating right now is in a really weird place. What is wrong with dating right now? And Evelyn was dating in the 90s. And something that really stayed with me, and I keep telling my friends right now that are single, is I think we're struggling with dating because we don't have a lot of mixed friend groups. Because she was saying back in the day, you would go out and you would invite your girlfriend, and your girlfriend would invite their guy friends, and then the guy friends would invite their other friends, and you would just be comfortable hanging out with each other. So then going up to one another wasn't this bold move that you had to make. Like, you were just familiar with like hanging out. And then that got me thinking about, well, should you be dating your friends? What's that friend to lover energy? We're always told to date our best friend or marry our best friend. But I know from personal experience, if I go on a date and I come home and I call my girlfriend and I'm like, oh my God, he kind of just like felt like a friend. We know what that means. Like, it's not going anywhere. So I want to talk about that on today's episode. I also think that we are currently in a romance recession. We say we want a relationship and we want to be in love, but we're dating less. We're exhausted by the apps. And somehow finding someone to date has become a second job. Have we optimized dating so much that we don't want to date anymore? So joining me in today's conversation is Jeffre Behm, who is a dating and relationship content creator and educator, and also the creator of Love School. A lot of Jeffre's work and content is about looking inward at our own patterns and how we approach connection. I want to challenge a few things on Jeffre and like get his POV on certain things. Jeffre, welcome to Lovely. How's it going?
Good. Very happy to be here. Excited for this conversation.
Yeah, excited as well. And I know we got to chat a little bit before we hit record. You are currently in Orlando, correct?
Orlando, Florida. Yep.
The foundation of the conversation always starts with who you were, what you saw growing up. So tell me a little bit about your connection to immigrant identity and kind of like how you were raised. What's your story?
So my parents split up when I was really young and both remarried into very Dutch families. And so they were both the children of Dutch immigrants. And so you would see a lot of that different culture from what I was used to growing up, just kind of injected into my life. And I think at the core of what it taught me was just it expanded my horizons. And then further than that, my great-grandmother was a British immigrant. And so we would always have traditional British family get-togethers whenever we were around there. And it inspired me to actually go abroad and study over where she lived. And so I think it just gave me a bigger idea or a more complete view of the world. I think that translates into every aspect of who I am now, just trying to be more open minded, know that there's different ways of living and different ways of thinking, and that can also impact how you show up when you're dating.
Yeah. And what's your dating philosophy now that you would maybe consider something open minded that other people wouldn't necessarily follow through with? Are you dating right now?
I am not dating right now, but I think it falls into this philosophy of I think it's both harder to date right now. You have to put more effort into dating than you used to just because there's not this access to third spaces, or at least like I'll speak personally. My life does not revolve around constantly being in community spaces. So working remotely, all of these ways that my life has been optimized, I don't go out like I would in college and potentially run into people and meet other people. And so in that way, there's a lot more effort that people have to put into dating. And I kind of feel it in my social media where every time I try and explain that like dating is hard and it requires a lot of effort, it's kind of crickets. And no one wants to maybe accept that reality that it's not something that just intuitively happens, that that's something that we find through, going to lunch in a public space compared to a very remote world that we're living in now. I think it requires a lot more effort now because love does kind of feel like a luxury item because so much of our lives don't require another person like it used to. I think there's a need for more effort, but also at the same time, this need for community, I feel like we're still under the assumption that it hasn't gone away because you can still say, oh, there's coffee shops and there's local places you can go to a library. And a lot of my comments will be on that subject of, oh, third spaces still exist, but it's not integrated into our lives the way that it was like in college.
It's not as natural and organic as it used to be. And I think with my last guest, Evelyn, we were talking about the same things. Like there is a big need for third spaces, there is a big need for mixed friend groups, and there is a big need for people just coming together and like being comfortable around one another. You touched on something that I was very curious about. Like I've seen your content on Instagram. I first want to know what kind of influenced you to create content on dating.
As young as I can remember, I have always had this romantic mindset of watching early 2000s rom-coms when I was 4 in the living room.
What's your favorite rom-com?
My best friend's wedding is still my favorite.
So you have this romantic mindset.
Yeah, this romantic mindset, but like this deep inherent need from childhood that love was going to be the answer to the pain in my stomach that I already had when I was little. And it was watching cartoons. I would fall in love with cartoon characters, and it would be this all encompassing feeling of, I can't wait to be with someone like this one day. And so all through my childhood and then teen years, it was this, girl crazy feeling where it was like, I just need to find this person for me. And at the same time, I think, dealing with my parents going through divorce when I was really young, the devastation of that, I think fueled that because like I wasn't seeing love modeled the way that I saw it on TV and movies. And so it didn't, I think there was a mental break for me where I was like, no, like this isn't how it's supposed to be. Like Disney movies, you're supposed to end up together. And so I think that was very complicated for me to understand growing up. And I just desperately wanted it.
That's really interesting because some people that I have had conversations with on Lovely, but also just in general, when you hear them being raised in a household with divorced parents, they almost become cynical of love. And they have this different view of love that, like, oh, it's never going to happen for me because it never happened for my parents. And like, that's kind of what they model. But it's interesting that you had the opposite effect and you became more romantic. You're almost like so delusional about making it work that you're like, I'm going to go to any means to make it work. Do you still believe in true love?
No. I believe in love. I believe in two people coming together and choosing each other. But the idea of a soulmate, I think it traps us into thinking we don't have to take action and that it's not a choice every day. And so, like with Disney movies, it would always be about once these two people are together, then the work's done. You don't see after the movie ends when Cinderella gets frustrated because whoever the, the prince is decides to not, do the laundry but for like weeks, and then they get into a huge argument about it, and you just don't see any of the reality of what a relationship can be. And so when you think of a soulmate, you don't think of your soulmate like frustrating you on a Tuesday.
So you used to believe in soulmates and this fairy tale type of love and happy ending, which personally I used to as well. But I think it's the biggest scam because they make you feel like, everything is good and dandy, and it's actually not. Like life doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? But I do think there's certain aspects of the relationship and your partner that should make you feel at ease, but you're still, love is a verb, love is an action. Like you're consistently choosing people, right? Have you ever been in love?
I think for periods of time, I felt it. Like you said, it's an action verb. But what I found is that I'm a fixer. And so, just to add to what you're saying, it has to be both sides. And so, why I say that there were periods of time when I felt in love, it was when I wasn't the only person contributing to that love. A lot of my early relationships were me completely propping up this idea of what I wanted love to be. And it almost didn't even matter who the other person was because whether they hurt me, whether they liked me, I was going to be the one that made this relationship work. And so for me to feel like I was in love, I need that reciprocity. We all need that reciprocity. And so have I been in love? Yes, when I felt like my partner was there for me in the same way or in their way, when I saw effort, when I saw that they cared about making this relationship work in the same way I did.
So that's very interesting, but I still want to know, what is your why behind making the content that you make? Like, is it to help others, or like, what is the main reason?
So it was in response to pulling back my romanticism and acknowledging all the reasons that love didn't work. So that's what I realized made me someone that could help others is that I've failed at love so many times. So as far as the why of why I started making this content, beyond my upbringing and being a romantic, what I realized after so many failed relationships is that I was in a cycle where I just kept thinking that if I worked hard enough, if I fixed my relationships, that eventually someone would stay. But at some point, I think we all have to look inward and ask ourselves what we're doing wrong in the situation. And I was doing a lot of things wrong. And so when I started this content, I was in such a bad place where my latest relationship again failed, and I found myself right back on the apps, and I was like, I this is not working. I'm doing the exact same thing I keep doing. And so starting this channel was a way for me to hold myself accountable to the kind of person that I want to be. And so all of the lessons that I teach on my social channel are for me. I'm as much a student of what I'm saying as much as anyone else.
I totally get the concept of making content to talk about things that you're struggling with, because when you preach things, you almost can put it into practice. But sometimes I've noticed when people preach a lot, they actually have the reverse effect. They're not able to put it into practice. How have you evolved? Like, how do you date now? Like, are you still the fixer, or like, are you still people pleasing? When is the last time you went on a date?
The last time I went on a date was maybe 3 months ago, and that was through a dating app. We went to a mini putt.
When you plan a date, do you ask the person, like, what do they like to do? Or do you just like plan it and you hope the good vibes go and like they'll like it?
And it's part of why I'm so against dating apps now. It was just finding somewhere in the middle between where we lived, like an activity that the both of us could do. But even as you were just asking me about the date,
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I didn't know this person well enough to be able to suggest something that we both liked. Even on the date, I'm like, neither of us really,
Wanted to go mini putt.
yeah, yeah, we didn't want to go.
Why do we do that?
Oh, I think it's because we get nervous. And then when we get nervous, I think we want to put on a good impression and then we fall back into what we think we're supposed to do. At least that's where my mind went, where it was like, well, you're supposed to take someone out on like a nice date. You want them to have a good time. If we're not doing dinner, you know, then what else is there in this area? And at least for that date, it was going to a putt putt range. But it's made those first dates awful. I hate a first date from a dating app. And so as far as like why or what I do differently with dating now, I'm about to move to the St. Pete, Tampa area. Right now where I live, there's about 10 people my age in town and I feel like we all know each other at this point. But like having a diverse opportunity to meet new people and to like lower those stakes, I think is the key to actually finding someone that you actually mesh with. Like if right now the stakes are so high. So like for example, with that date, before I even met this girl, it was like I had this mental checklist of what she was and wasn't. And it was like, oh, well, she doesn't like this and she doesn't necessarily like this about that. I hadn't had an actual face-to-face conversation. I didn't know like how her face moved when she listened to what I had to say or, how the back and forth went. All of these things that I thought were important in my head that I made the stakes so high about didn't matter.
So I completely agree with you. I think another big scam is learning something about someone from 3 prompts and 5 pictures. Like it's so hard to figure out how you're going to vibe. What are your thoughts on having a FaceTime call before you on a first date?
I love the idea of a FaceTime before a call. I've never gotten that bold with a potential partner to suggest a FaceTime. I've suggested phone calls, and phone calls make me feel so much better just because at least there you get a little volley of, how you speak back and forth, whether, you can actually cut into the conversation and it be normal, or if you guys are just like constantly cutting each other off and there's a mismatch in that conversation style. So it's funny how much we seem to hold on to like the ideas of what dating should be. It's like we still hold on to the ideas of how dating worked when we had third spaces, when we would meet people in person. And we're holding on to those, but in this age of meeting people on dating apps, like we should treat dating apps as this completely new frontier, and whatever we think is a good idea to try and make this first encounter lower stakes, we should embrace that.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The human postponer. They were the master of one phrase. I'll circle back on that. But 3 months later, you were the one doing all their work and wondering how big that circle is. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can take the hiring load off your plate by automating the hiring busy work from the initial job post to scheduling interviews. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
Okay, so speaking of lower stakes, I think my perfect partner would be someone that you just love accompanying to do things. Like you should feel like a friend that you want to hook up with all the time. Like I think that is like my perfect partner. As I alluded into my intro, like when you go on a date and you're like, I think I would like to keep him as a friend or I would like to be friends with this person, but I don't want to date them. So you make a lot of content around that. So I would love to know, like, do you have a personal story
Yes, one of the biggest things that I've always struggled with is the difference between what a friend is in a relationship and then what a romantic partner is. And so, what I found after I started posting about this is that my idea of where that line is completely different than where other people think the line is. I found that some people look at a friendship as this deep emotional connection between two people that goes way, way into what I would consider romantic. And so trying to find that line between friend and romantic partner has been a really interesting task to try and sift through. To your point, as far as like your ideal partner being a friend that you want to hook up with, I feel like there's a missing piece to that because I think you can be really good friends with someone that does not share a quarter of your values. And I think that you can have a lot of fun with certain people. But when you sit down and you have to be with this person every single day, even if you get along great, if your values don't also align in that bubble of, friend, romantic, and values, I don't think it's going to work long term. I think you need to look down the road at what kind of life you want to build together and make sure that that aligns as well. So when we think about the difference between a friend and lover or romantic partner, I've learned that the line for people constantly changes. Some people are totally fine being super vulnerable, super open. Some people like to become very physical with their friends. And for me, that is a line that I would say no, like that is definitely crossed over into romantic, but they still hold the boundary that that's still just friendly. And so it's very interesting. People feel very strongly about where that line is, and they seem to get very defensive if I try and suggest that their friendship is romantic when they see it as a friendship.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay, okay. Some people really blur the lines of what stays in the friend department and who stays as a romantic connection. Yeah, I was thinking something else. Like I'm thinking that I very much am dating you, but like I guess there needs to be like ease as in like I feel like we're not two completely different strangers, but you feel like a friend of mine, but like we have like that friendship endearment, but we still have chemistry and attraction that I mean, I don't hook up with my friends, you know what I mean? But like I feel that ease, but I also feel a romantic connection with you. Do you have a hot take?
My hot take is that every relationship has to deal with the struggle between friend and romantic partner. So just replace the word friend with acquaintance or any just person that you meet. You have to figure out what where the line is or how you get across that line. So beyond the friend versus romantic partner and trying to draw that line, what that has kind of evolved into is a lot of people asking me, how do I know when it becomes romantic? And that seems to be a huge issue for people is when do you know whether you're being friend zoned or if, there is potential for something more. I think it's a lifetime of discussion over what magic turns a friend into a romantic partner because there have been people that I have absolutely adored. We got along. We had the same values. We had everything in common. I thought they were attractive. They were interested in me. And still, something kept me from wanting something more with them. And so you could look at potentially, what my past traumas are or anything like that. But I think finding the line for yourself, it's never going to be some black and white line for if you need to find the line between friend and romantic partner, it's about two people sitting down and actually talking through what you both want. And that seems to be such an unsexy thing that no one wants to talk about. We leave so much on the table unanswered because we just kind of start dating and don't talk about, well, do you want, I mean, questions like, do you want kids will show up, but money is not always something that gets brought up early on like it should. Even further than that, what dreams and hopes do you have for yourself? Do you like alone time? I That was something that I never thought would come up, but some people absolutely need to be alone and isolate themselves in a relationship, which I don't think a lot of people bring up in the first, month of dating. And so just really getting very clear about why you're both in the relationship, why you're both showing up, I think is very important, and something that we just don't do because we still like the romance of it, which goes back to what my problem was in the beginning, was that I projected this idea of what I thought love was onto this person. And I think so many of us do that. We project onto each other what we think love is, and then we forget to actually talk about it.
Yeah, I think there's so many things that you said that are important. Like, I think we are starting to have the conversations that we need to have right now, but I think we might be having it too soon. Like, I think on first date, like it's so like, okay, what do you do for work? Do you want to get married? What are your values? Again, I think values are very important because if something just doesn't align, it does not align, and you're not going to spark your way into it day 3 or day 4. So I actually wanted to ask you about this concept that I read recently, which is called practice dating. I don't know if you've heard about it, but I'll kind of like tell you about it. There was a conversation lately about practice dating, which is pretty much going on dates you might normally turn down. People are doing this without putting pressure on every person to potentially become your partner, right? So, immediate reaction, do you think it's healthy or do you think it's horrifying?
I think it's a great thing. It brings my attention to one of my earlier videos where I said go into a date acting like it already failed, like they already said no. And people did not like that take. But the point of it was exactly what you're getting at.
Why didn't they like it?
Some of them didn't give specific answers. They just said the bar is in hell for dating and just kind of went on with their day. But if someone did respond specifically to it, it was they want the romance of it. They want the fairy tale story of it. So many people on their dating apps are already saying, what story are we going to tell about how we met that wasn't on a dating app? Yeah, I think people don't want to give up the fairy tale first meeting. They want the meet cute. As far as going on dates with people that you potentially aren't attracted to, we're way too picky. We're way too picky, myself included. Our list of things that we think are going to make a good partner is crap. That list needs to be thrown out the window. You can meet someone and they have a smile where one like side of their face lifts up a little more and you are enthralled with how they smile. And all of a sudden, you're compromising on things that you absolutely would have swiped left on. And it didn't even like none of those things, all of those rules went out the window. So as far as going on a date with someone you wouldn't go on a date with, I think we already are awful at deciding who would be a good partner and who we're attracted to and why we're attracted to them. I think there's so many people that on paper don't find them attractive at all. And then 5-minute conversation, how they carry themselves might completely change that.
Yeah, I kind of had conflicting views about it when I first like heard about it back in the day. And I remember I have a really, really good friend who was like, look, I'm going out on a date. I am not very initially attracted to him, but I think it could, I don't know. I'm just going to go on the date. I'm going to go on the date. And then like he went on the date and he's like, look, I knew I wasn't going to be attracted to him, but it was a good time. And I think this is someone I would really like to stay friends with. And I think it does a few things. It makes you less anxious and more present on dates because you're not constantly trying to impress the other person because you want them to like you back. Because then when someone is not your ideal type on paper, it lowers the stakes. That's number one. And then another thing is that, again, it's like a skill. Like you're practicing, you're meeting people, you're putting yourself out there. Like you have to get in reps before you get results. The other part where I was like, I have conflicting views, it's like, are you wasting the other person's time? Because if you're going on a date and you already know that you suspect you're not going to be interested in them, then like, is it fair to the other person? But at the end of the day, humans are so layered. Like, again, like you said, from a dating profile, you don't know how they move in motion. Like, you don't know how the way if like you're debating something and like the way they raise their one eyebrow, you could find that really attractive. You know, like there's certain things you only see in person. So as much as like you may think you're wasting the other person's time, you also never know, that could be a good meet cute story.
I would say one other thing to that is if you think it's a waste of time to have the date, I think we're looking at a first date wrong, because it should be this fun experience. So if you looked at this person as a friend that you were going to hang out with, would that you would have no thought of like, oh man, am I wasting this person's time for going out and seeing a movie together? Like we're so, again, like optimized to date that we can't just enjoy the company of another person. And so yeah, I think you can go out on the date, and if you absolutely don't see anything attractive in them, I don't think you should feel bad about that, because again, you got out of the house. For me, that's a big deal. If I can get out of the house and have human interaction with people and feel part of my community, whether the date worked out or not, I think the closer we can get back to just being excited about doing something together, the better we'll be long term anyway.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The human postponer. They were the master of one phrase. I'll circle back on that. But 3 months later, you were the one doing all their work and wondering how big that circle is. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can take the hiring load off your plate by automating the hiring busy work from the initial job post to scheduling interviews. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
The new Red Bull Dragonberry Energizer is now at McDonald's. Made with freeze-dried dragon fruit. And made to lock in. The all-new Energizer, now at McDonald's.
I have another theory that I thought about the other day. I don't think we know how to flirt anymore. And I think this stopped exactly at the time when we stopped saying hi to people in the elevator. I think when you get in the elevator and you used to talk to people, you had this certain like ease and confidence of flirting, of talking. I have a lot of cute guys in my building. Okay, they're really cute. And sometimes I get into the elevator and I see them and I'm like, oh my God, like I want to say something, but I don't say anything. And I'm like, just me being in the elevator should give you enough reason to talk to me and know that I'm interested in you. But like, how would they ever know? So I'm now challenging myself, and I challenge you too, Jeffrey. The next time you get into an elevator, it doesn't even have to be someone you're attracted to. It could be any person, just talk to them. Do you talk to people in the elevator?
I try to. I was the shyest kid growing up. It was another reason why I wanted to start doing social media, just so that I could get over that fear of being seen. But yeah, I try and get out of my shell as much as possible. And it makes going up to a stranger so much easier. It still is really difficult. But if you, like you said, if you don't have the reps and you actually meet someone where you're like, oh, wow, this is someone that I am interested in. If you're sweating through your shirt because of the first time that you've had a conversation with another person in 2 months, then, you might be missing a really good chance at meeting someone special.
Okay, I want to do some really like quick hot takes or yes or no's. I'm gonna list off a few things and then I'll give you 2 options and then you pick one option. The spark, necessary or overrated?
Overrated.
Friends to lovers, ideal or risky?
Ideal.
Staying friends with an ex, mature or unnecessary?
mature.
I don't think exes can ever stay friends. Are you friends with an ex?
I am, well, and that's why I was so hesitant, because I'm friends with some exes because there is way distance between the two of us. It's not like a daily conversation. It's almost more like acquaintances. But as far as being best friends with each other, I could not do that. I feel like that's unnecessary and could complicate future relationships.
Okay. Your friends hate the person you're dating. Listen to them or trust yourself?
Listen to them. We project so much that I don't think we see ourselves the way that any third party can see ourselves. And so take the advice, maybe not 100% of the time, but definitely you need to take a closer look at that relationship if the people closest to you don't like them.
If they wanted to, they would. Good advice or internet bullshit?
Internet bullshit.
I agree.
Too much is left unsaid. We need to talk about the things that are important to us. And that's the only way that we can provide those things.
I think there's a big difference in teaching someone how to care for you versus communicating how you feel cared for. Jeffre, what we like to end every episode off with is you leaving a question for my next guest. So, and you don't know who the next guest is going to be, but if you could ask them one question, what would it be?
Well, I'm not sure if they'll be single or not. What's the best relationship that you've been in, and why do you feel that that was the best relationship?
I like it. I like it. Doing some thinking and reflecting. Jeffre, I think you have a lot of great work on socials. And if anyone wants to see more of your content, where can they find you?
Yeah, so all of my socials are at Jeffre Behm. That's JEFFRE BEHM.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
I feel like we talked a lot about friend energy, romantic energy, how to think about your own patterns, and kind of, understand yourself before making a judgment on what's right for you, what you want. And I know everyone listening is going to have opinions on some of this too, but I think this was a good conversation. I do think that sometimes we need to do the things that give us that type of reaction to see something different. If anyone is resonating with practice dating, learning about yourself and kind of having this identity crisis and kind of how that's resulted the good, bad, or ugly in your dating lifestyle, I would love to hear it. So definitely send me a message on Instagram. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend, leave a comment. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next week for more Lovely. Lovely is an Immigrantly media production. This episode was produced by Sadia Khan and Shay Yu, written by me, Mehak. Theme music, sound design, and editing by Lou Raskin. Other music by Epidemic Sound. See you next week for more Lovely.